Good morning. It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. We are waiting on one more person to have quorum, so unless the members object, maybe we'll move to a different part of the agenda that doesn't require a vote. Is that okay with everybody?
Sounds good, yeah.
And then when we, maybe when we have enough people, we'll go to the voting items. So let's see, what's our first non-voting item? TDOT and FHWA updates, item 6. Number 5. Oh, okay. West Knoxville Corridor Study presentation. No action required, but tell us what we need to know, please.
You update?
Okay, ready or not, you get to go. Yeah.
All right, now you hear me.
Yep.
I'm hearing myself, so that's good news. Yeah. No, it's
We
fine.
can hear you fine.
As long as you can hear me, I'm
Yep.
good. Good morning. Let's see if the clicker, yep, perfect. All right, so we're here today to give an update on the Knoxville I-40, I-75 corridor priority investment project that TDOT kicked off back last April when the 3-year plan was put out on the road. So, as you know, the I-40, I-75 corridor is a huge, hugely important corridor for the East Tennessee and the region, not just Knoxville and Knox County or the counties right here next to us. Being a geographically where we are and being a transportation hub of the country and being within a day's drive of a high percentage of the country, a lot of the country's goods and stuff flow through this area. So this corridor is vastly important to not just the local area, but to the larger state or region, state, and to the country. We are trying to address congestion and safety through this corridor. We have kicked off what we call a PD&E, which is a preliminary design and environmental study. Project development environmental study. So what that means is we're doing a lot of things at once. Historically, we do planning with a little bit of engineering, and then environment would take off during the project development process on the back end. We're trying to do a lot of that concurrently in this case. We're doing a heavy look at engineering options through the corridor, and we'll get into those in a few minutes, but we're doing heavy engineering work at the same time as doing environmental work to try to understand all the different things that are within the environment that we have to deal with while those things are going on concurrently, which will feed into the project development process, which will allow us to get to construction on whatever the selected alternatives are much quicker. So some of the challenges to that are we need to analyze and understand truck volumes through this corridor, how the weigh stations play into the corridor. As I mentioned, us being kind of in the crossroads of America, our truck volumes through here exceed 20%. Most interstates, we live here, we're used to it, we're used to seeing it. Most interstates around the country see in the 5 to 10% range. So we're vastly different than what most of the country sees on interstates. And then, of course, we want to enhance our partnerships with stakeholders through this corridor, with the Knoxville TPOe, the folks here in the decision-making, city and county officials, other people that are using this corridor, such as our utilities and the railroad, enhance those partnerships and better put something together that works for everybody. We are assessing potential environmental impacts. Like I said, the part of this PD&E is the environmental piece. We want to know what we're dealing with environmentally before we make decisions on a planning level and for implementation. So a lot of that goes hand in hand with understanding public perception and priorities, right? So that's a big part of this. We will be doing public involvement, and that's why we're here today. Is we're on the cusp of starting putting those things into action. For those that aren't aware, this interstate was built in the 1950s and 60s. And as you can see, while it made a good idea back in those days to put two interstates together. You can see at Cedar Bluff and Campbell Station Road that it was a very rural interstate at the time. There was no urban sprawl happening along this corridor. Had everybody known what was going to happen, we may not have made the decision to put two interstates together. But that's what had happened, and you can see the kind of growth that we saw around those two interchanges. Since then, this is more what we're dealing with today. You can see that what used to be farmland is now commerce in most cases, right along the side of the interstate. Two more examples at Walker Springs and Paper Mill Road. Again, in that before picture at Walker Springs, you can see a very rural Kingston Pike. Everybody knows that is a huge part of the commerce here in the Knox County area is what's going on Kingston Pike. So we've seen extreme amounts of growth along this corridor, and it looks vastly different, which brings a lot of things into play when we're doing project development. Anytime you go widening of an interstate, when you've got that kind of growth right along, it has impact. So all those studies are in part of the project. Since we kicked the project off last April, again, it showed up in the 3-year plan, was new for TDOT, a PD&E project. So we spent from April 5th, when we had the media event out at the way station to announce this project, we spent about a month and a half, 2 months getting a better understanding of what a PD&E project was. I had literally heard about this project the day before we had that meeting out there at the interstate. So it's very much a new process for TDOT. We wrap our arms around what a PD&E is. It is something that's done in other states. We don't usually tackle projects of this size at one time. So this was, again, new for us. We started working on putting together an advertisement to bring on consultants to help us with this. And we advertised in early June and received proposals in June, and done all of our interviews in July, done all of our reviews of proposals, and all of that took a couple months to get to a consultant selection in August. August, STV was a selected consultant to help us do this project. We had a project kickoff meeting with senior leadership in September with our consultant team, just to get project alignment through senior leadership within the department, me as the point of accountability for the department, and regional leadership and our consultants who are going to be performing the work. Then we immediately started into scoping the project with that consultant. We've been working with them since September to get this project scoped out with them so that we can get to a fee agreement. We have that at this point in January, and we're moving forward. All that to say, they've been a great partner. They hit the ground running in September. We have an expedited timeline for this project, so they started doing some work at risk while we were going through this process of getting through fee and negotiations. But we have gotten to that point and are ready to move at a hurricane pace, if you will. The project team, like I say, I'm Dexter Justice. I'm the point of accountability for this project from TDOT. But we have hired a day-to-day project management and support work through HNTB. And Mr. Eric Saggers, who'll be up here in a few minutes, is the day-to-day project manager for this project. And we are working closely to keep STV within the bounds of what we are trying to get done on this project. STV was selected consultant to perform the work. They are the project lead, both environmentally and design. They are prime. They have brought on a slew of highly competent and nationally recognized consultants to help them on this project. Stantec being the traffic and environmental wing of the team. CDM Smith being a local firm has been brought on to look at traffic and design of a potential relocated I-75. Cannon, again, with some local flavor, with utility coordination, Robert Campbell and Associates with survey, and Parsons for cost estimating. So that's the team that is going to deliver this project. Like I say, this project is a huge project for the region, state, and locally. We're looking at how to improve conditions along I-75, I-40 from the I-75-40 interchange in Loudoun County all the way to the I-640, I-40 interchange on the west side of Knoxville. It's roughly 17 miles. We'll be going in each direction from each of those locations. On 640, a couple miles in this study to figure out how that interplays with the corridor. On I-40 as you head towards Knoxville and Alcoa Highway. And then on the I-75 south from the split down to Lenoir City, and from the split on 40 as you move out towards Buttermilk Road. So you can see that this is a huge project, covers a lot of territory, but it really looks at traffic patterns and how people use this corridor more holistically. So you can see our initial study area covers just south of this corridor into Kingston Pike. You have a lot of interplay between Kingston Pike and this corridor. It runs up I-75 north into Anderson County, and it reaches just a little bit to the west of the interchange, like I say, but then it looks very much north of the I-40 up to the Anderson-Knox County line along the Clinch River. As I mentioned, we're going to be doing a holistic study here. How can we address the needs here? What's the best way forward? That starts with, I say, two bookends. One bookend being a relocated I-75, so you separate the traffic that is currently on I-40 and I-75, so that would definitely improve conditions along this corridor if you move that traffic off. That comes with a certain cost and all those kinds of things, and we need to do traffic analysis to understand the benefits there. The other bookend of that would be a potential choice lane project where we add, through a private partnership, additional lanes that would be a choice for a rider to use at a fee that would improve travel times and congestion along the corridor as well. So if that's your two bookends, everything in between is also being analyzed, whether it be interchange modifications that would make interchanges work better, additional additional general purpose lanes, which would be additional lanes to the interstate that's not there now, auxiliary lane potential, collector distributor roads, everything that would be in between those two bookends. So we're doing a holistic view of this corridor and what would be best for us moving forward. So that's a lot, right? We're looking at a lot of stuff here. But what is interesting to me is the number of vehicles on this corridor, right? I mean, across the state, most people would anticipate that the heaviest ADT counts would be happening in Nashville. They would be wrong. That's happening right here in this 17 miles, 200,000 cars a day. But if you go down on I-75 in Lenoir City, it's in the 45 to 50,000 cars a day. If you go north on 75 up in Anderson County, it's back at that 45,000 cars a day range. So what's that tell you? There's a lot of local trips happening right there on that corridor. People getting on, whether it be in Farragut or in Bearden, and they're running into Knoxville or back and forth, vice versa, or daily trips in between the mall and Turkey Creek or whatever. You all live there, you know what I'm talking about. But there's a lot of local trips happening here, so we want to better understand all that and see what the best solution is that we can get to for this community and for the corridor as a whole and all that it provides to Tennesseans and the country. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brad Thompson with STV. He's going to get a little more in depth on some of the work that we've been doing. Part of what I want to do today is not just give you an update on the project, but also introduce you to the people who are going to be doing the work. So STV's project manager is Brad Thompson. I'll let him carry it from here.
Thank you, Dexter. I'm going to lower this, not quite as tall as Dexter. So, and by the way, this is perfect height. So, thank you. Let's see if is it right. There we go. All right. So yeah, as Dexter mentioned, I'm Brad Thompson. I'm the project manager with STV and working closely with Dexter and Eric as part of the team. And just kind of want to talk through some of the things we've been doing over the past couple of months here to get this thing going. So there's a few objectives. Dexter's covered a good bit of these, but I want to talk through them real quick just to make sure everybody understands kind of what it is we're doing and how we're going to get there. Obviously, there's been a lot of planning that's been done in this corridor over the years. One of the first things we did was we dug in to see what all those existing and previous plans have been done, because it kind of establishes a baseline for us to understand kind of where the region's been and things that they've looked at in the past, because that kind of starts to formulate and indicate to us some things that we need to be looking at or some things that maybe we don't need to be looking at. We've gone through surveying the inventory and assets and conditions. We're doing a full survey in the corridor. Robert Campbell is working on that. Part of that is identification of right-of-way and utilities along the corridor. There are a tremendous number of utilities along the corridor, and as Dexter mentioned, one of the other challenges related to this corridor specifically is the right-of-way. A lot of the development that's occurred in the corridor has happened right up to the edges of the right-of-way, and that of course creates constraints for us in terms of the things we're looking at in the corridor for potential improvements, because anytime you start talking about needing to expand right-of-way, you start talking about getting into some costs that could make some options prohibitive. So we need a good understanding of that. The assessment of existing and future corridor traffic and regional traffic patterns, that's particularly important as it relates to what we're trying to accomplish here. We know there's congestion. We know there's severe congestion. In order to understand that, though, we've got to dig deeper and really understand what the causes of those congestion levels are. Safety issues. The corridor, as Dexter mentioned, tremendous amount of truck traffic. Driving over last night on Tuesday. Tuesday is one of the truck days, as we like to call it. I would have told you it had to have been 50% or greater trucks. It was pretty wild driving the corridor last night. So, but with the trucks, with the weigh stations and some of the issues that the weigh stations create with where they are, it creates movement and weaving patterns that can lead to safety issues. So we've got to get an understanding of that and collecting that data and starting to analyze and do a deeper dive on that to understand what's causing some of the safety issues and how we can potentially improve those. Dexter mentioned identification and evaluation of the needs and solutions. At the end of the day, that's what we're here for, to figure out what the needs are exactly, what are the potential solutions, and which of those solutions make the most sense from a variety of standpoints. We're going to be developing design options throughout the corridor. We're going to be developing some options that, quite frankly, may not move forward. There'll be some that make sense. There'll be some that don't make sense. It's up to us to kind of figure that out along with TDOT and coordination with all of our other stakeholders. Ultimately, kind of what this comes to is what's called a planning and environmental linkages study. That's what we're working toward. And essentially what that is understanding what the needs are, coming up with solutions with those, and through the PAL process, developing scoring criteria and a matrix that will help us evaluate all those different alternatives and start to narrow those down so that they can then move forward into the next phase, which is the full NEPA process and the full preliminary design. A few other things are going to be included. Part of that, obviously, is constructability. If you can't build it, it doesn't make sense to move it forward. Estimated project costs are always a factor. We know that's going to be a factor here, and that'll be part of the criteria for figuring out what moves forward. Then ultimately coming up with a plan and a program for recommendations on not just the projects themselves, but the timing of the projects, when they need to occur, and how those may be funded and financed, and ultimately the construction delivery options that are used for that. I don't want to go without mentioning this one, as the public involvement and stakeholder coordination. We're going to be doing a robust public involvement outreach campaign as part of this project to fully make sure we understand. The data tells us a lot, right? But it doesn't tell us everything. And a lot of times the public can give us insight into things that they see that are happening that maybe the data is not showing us. So we need to hear from the public to understand what their concerns are, and also not just their concerns, but what some of their ideas are. A lot of times they have great ideas, and so we want to hear from them on what those ideas are, and we'll be going through that process here. Just a little bit of detail. I'll try not to bore you too much, but a lot of what we've been doing so far, just so you understand, is a lot of environmental data collection. The environmental piece is integral to this because the environmental, and a lot of times can cause a number of issues for a project and a design concept, whether they be, having to avoid certain environmental features, understanding, the natural environment that's out there, any public lands that are out there, things that we can't really impact necessarily, or have to be careful in how we do impact those. So what we've done is we've gone through and done a full GIS mapping exercise, data collection, and establishing a comprehensive data set that will help us to analyze all the different alternatives we're looking at. We're also we've done a desktop environmental feature survey to understand what's going on in the corridor, and then kind of the step we're working on right now is establishing a purpose and need statement for the overall project. that'll move forward throughout the life of the project. Traffic data collection. I mean, you could have guessed this is a major part of what we've been doing up to this point. In order to understand what's out there from that congestion, from the safety side of things, from the truck side of things, we've got to do a ton of traffic counts. And so you can see here, we've done a total of 181 different traffic count locations, looking at eight-day counts, 48-hour ramp counts, turning movement counts. That's what we spent a lot of time early on in the study back in November and December, getting those done before the holidays hit, so that we could fully understand what's going on out there, what our situation is on the ground. Identified a few things here, some bottleneck areas of concern. The top 20 rankings in Region 1, 11 of those top 20 fall within our project. This is in terms of bottlenecks. 14 or the top 11 of the 20 are within the project. 14 total are within our project area. Interesting to note, the top 3 of those rankings are traveling westbound, not eastbound, but actually westbound. So you can see those 3 that are identified up there on the map. Across the state, 3 of the top 20 bottlenecks across the state are also located within this corridor. So we know we've got a lot going on here in terms of congestion and bottlenecks. Some safety areas of concern in Region 1, 9 of the top 20 are within our project limits. Probably no surprise there. And the top 6 of those 20 are also within our project limits. You can see a couple there that are called out on the map. Statewide, the Watt Road, Campbell Station Road interchange, that area is ranked 5th. What's interesting is, with that number of accidents and crashes that we're having in the corridor, that actually contributes to approximately 41% of the congestion in the corridor. So you can see we're starting to build a case where if we can fix some of the safety issues, it greatly enhances the ability to handle the traffic that's in the corridor. Not necessarily going to fix it, but it'll certainly help.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What consists of a crash?
You want to put your microphone on? Just, yeah.
Crash, accident, they're basically the same. One and the same. Yeah, good question.
Can you just, I'm just curious, how could the traffic be, westward is it because they're looking into the sun and so things get more congested?
That's what we've got to figure out. We've got to figure that as well. The westbound.
And is it time of day?
It's time of day. It's typically the afternoon rush hour is more confined than the morning rush hour. And so you get those hot spots that pop up.
But only going one direction, or one direction's worse?
One direction's worse.
We feel it's 4 into 3.
I'm sorry, what's that?
4 into 3, 4 lanes down to 3 lanes.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Only on the one side?
Yeah. There's a number of factors there that we're digging into for sure to try to figure out, because we thought the same thing, like, well, why is it all westbound? And so we're starting to dig into that and get those things figured out. Yeah. Some of the solutions we're looking at, Dexter mentioned a few of these already. Capacity additions, obviously, to the existing corridor, interchange optimization, redesign on some of the interchanges that haven't been updated in many years. If in some cases, really, not much has ever been done to them. We're looking at potential ITS solutions.
What's ITS?
Intelligent transportation systems. It's basically communication of traffic throughout the corridor with different traffic management centers, so that they can do things like timing of signalization, making sure everything's talking to one another to move traffic through as efficiently as possible. Yeah, it's also like some of the dynamic message signs you see that are out there now, overhead signs that tell you kind of what's going on. Way station solutions, I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, but the way stations we know do cause some issues out there. And then kind of the I-75 relocated alternative is something else we're going to be looking into.
So just a quick question: when I-75 and 40 are on the same road, that's an additional 50,000. So if the I-75 alternative happens, that would reduce current traffic by 50,000 vehicles?
Not necessarily. Yeah.
I would say we know what the traffic count is on the west, and we know what the traffic count is to the north, but there's a lot of that traffic that is stopping in Knoxville, and then people in Knoxville picking up and going that other direction. So it's not necessarily a guarantee that if you were to build a relocated, that all that traffic would be diverted, if that makes sense.
Is your traffic analysis able to, distinguish people's destinations?
The origin destination is part of it.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're going through an origin destination, look at things as well. There's a lot of data out there that already kind of informs us of that. So we're digging through that now to figure out exactly the question you're asking. How much of the traffic, if you separate I-75 and I-40, what is the benefit to the traffic at that point? Because it's not a one-to-one necessarily, comparison. So, yeah. Some of the initial design concepts we've been looking at, just to kind of roll through these here fairly quickly, give you an idea of some of the things we're looking at. The I-40/75, we're looking at, general purpose lane additions. We're looking at collector distributor roads. If you've been on some interstates, and this one you see on the right here is actually in Duluth, Georgia, collector distributor roads. They also have them in Texas. They use them a lot there. It's basically where you can access, you can get off of the interstate and use a collector road to distribute you to the local roads. So it gets you off of the main line of the interstate so that you're driving parallel, and then you can get access to the local roads as opposed to having an interchange at every single location. So that's something we're looking at. Again, these are all just things we're looking at right now. The choice lanes Dexter mentioned, the I-75 alternative alignment, separating those two. The way stations, I said I would talk about those in just a minute. Potential relocation we're looking at right now. We're having some discussions with Tennessee Highway Patrol and others to figure out, does it make sense for the way stations to stay where they're at now? Because we know they cause, if you've driven that corridor out there, they cause a lot of issues because of where they're located. Particularly as it relates to being on a steep grade in those areas right there. Trucks are having to slow down. They're having a hard time, getting up to speed. And that creates a lot of weaving movements in the corridor that can both slow down traffic because the truck's going slower, but also can lead to crashes in the area as well. So we're looking at, does it make sense for those to stay there? If not, are there other locations we could potentially relocate those? So that's another thing out there that we're looking at right now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Eric Saggers to talk a little bit about the choice lanes.
Right, thanks, Brad. Eric Saggers with HNTB, supporting Dexter with project management. Me personally and our firm have a lot of experience with PD&E projects and PELs from other states, so that's why TDOT feels comfortable having us help them out. Dexter mentioned one of the bookends that we're looking at is choice lanes, and some of you may have heard of them. Some of you may have heard of them a while ago and kind of forgot, but we thought we'd add a couple slides in here just to remind everybody what choice lanes are. TDOT is moving forward with the Choice Lanes project in Nashville right now on I-24. In fact, our firm is helping TDOT develop that project. There's going to be an RFP for that, and over the next couple of years, TDOT's going to embark on evaluating the potential for this in Nashville. But what choice lanes are they're new additional lanes. They would be a P3 project, as Dexter mentioned, a public-private partnership. So they're constructed and they're financed by a private developer, but still owned by TDOT. And they will essentially use a user fee to maintain a reliable trip time on those lanes. I think what I just said is up there on the screen. Yeah, built, financed, maintained, and operated and maintained. So they will take responsibility to maintain those as well. And it's going to be a way to, as we look at bookends, a way to potentially add some additional capacity to address congestion out there on I-40 proper. Just so you have a visualization of what that looks like, this is something that other states have been doing over the last 10 to 15 years. I'll focus on the picture on the right side. That's kind of the easiest one to see. But the choice lanes are the two lanes on the left side of the road. And there's technology out there, like ITS, as we were talking about, where toll tags, transponders are used to capture a user fee. And that user fee is dynamically priced so that that speed is maintained, that reliable trip time is maintained. Those lanes are separated by a delineated buffer, 4 foot typically, between them and the free general purpose lanes. So this would be 2 additional lanes of capacity. The benefit is, again, the price can be used to maintain speed, but it also has a secondary benefit of folks that use those lanes will be relieving some of the congestion in those already free general purpose lanes. So you are adding capacity there, and even people that don't use the choice lanes will benefit from them.
Before you
Sure,
leave that image,
sure.
I've had the opportunity to drive a lot in Virginia, and there's also a lot of high occupancy vehicle lanes, and
Yes.
that also has can have a positive impact on congestion. Is there any suggestion of that?
So in Nashville, I can speak to Nashville. The commissioner of TDOT has committed to that. Free lanes will remain free, and those HOV lanes they will be reconstructed in place. So these won't be HOV lanes per se. The HOV lanes, if they're already existing, will be there because those were federally funded and those were provided to the state of Tennessee through that funding, and TDOT would probably have to pay the federal government back if they converted those. So these will not be, there'll be no restriction, let me put it that way, on occupancy in these. It'll be a user fee-based system, the choice lanes. If that's an alternative that actually makes sense here. We have to evaluate that. We have been talking about local trips and trucks, and there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. So choice lanes may not be the solution here, but we wanted to at least, remind you, I guess, what they were and that we're going to be looking at them. Did you have a question, sir? Okay, I'm sorry. All right, and then one last slide here. I'll cover the schedule. Brad's slide mentioned phase one. We've been talking about the PD&E. So phase one is what we're calling the PEL. That's the term Planning and Environmental Leakages Study. And our goal is to come out of 2025 with a draft PEL report, and I'll back up here in a second. But that PEL report will inform what we want to look at moving forward. So we'll come out of there with a range of alternatives that will then take into the NEPA document phase, and we'll develop a list of estimated projects, construction costs, timelines, priority order. But this is how we're going to get to that first step and kind of get our hands around all these different alternatives. The two milestones I want to point out, amongst others, I suppose, is that the two public meetings. So there's one shown there at the end of April. We plan to, we'll come back to this group, I'm sure, before that to give you guys an update before we go to the public. But we'll be going to the public to show them what we've done, to seek input, understand priorities and perception. And there'll be a follow-on meeting later in the year after we've taken some of the information back, further developed and refined alternatives, and that will feed into the final report that will advance in 2026. All along the way, you can see different milestones there. The other one I'll point out is at the end of February, we're working on this right now, is drafting a purpose and need statement, which we will be coordinating with stakeholders and collaborating to understand, what is the purpose of the project, what need are we trying to fulfill, and then all along the way, we will be just kind of refining the alternatives and sharing information and seeking input. So that's our plan for 2025. I think with that, that's all our presentation. We're definitely here for questions, right, Dexter? So.
Any questions for the team who presented this overview for us today? Oh, yeah, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
Quick question. So the state will own the underlying fee of the roadway for the choice lanes potentially, if you do choose to go that route?
Yes, they'll be on our right of way, and we will own them. It would just be a contract with a concessionaire, I think is the right term, that they will have a lease for a better lack of a better term to maintain, operate, and use the facility until the end of that term, whatever that term is.
And once the project is paid for, what's the final disposition of the choice lanes once I guess the lease has been fulfilled and the contractor's been paid off?
Yeah, once the contractor's paid off and the concessionaire has lived out the terms of the lease, whether it be 30, 50 years, whatever it is, at the end of that, the state would be left with a facility that meets maintenance criteria that is established in the contract. And we will have a choice to make at that point, a new choice of does it need to stay a choice lane for that particular operation or traffic need that we have at that time, or do we need to turn it all into general purpose, right? So there'll be a further analysis to be made.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, Mayor Frank.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a couple of questions. The hurricane speed that you referenced, Dexter, that's for this entire process?
Correct, yes.
Okay. You mentioned alternatives were going to be presented to TDOT for review. do you have an estimated number of alternatives that are going to be presented? I mean, do you all have that in your scoping document?
It's not a number. Literally, we're throwing the kitchen sink at this thing.
Okay.
Trying to use their imagination, the consultant's imagination, to the best possible. What alternatives can they come up with? I'm sure we have already seen they've come up with some alternatives that were way out in what I'll say left field, and while they on paper look like they would work, constructability and cost would be astronomical, but they are showing what is possible through the corridor, right? So we are looking at lots of different things. Trying
Okay.
to use their imagination to their
Sure.
fullest.
Just a couple, one is just a comment, but one more question. In terms of a timeline and for, I guess, the public and our communities to understand, this will be presented to TDOT. Then what does the decision-making process look like? What is that timeline? And then I know, obviously, construction projects take a great deal of time. I may be retired by then, but
I hope not.
what can
I hope not.
what can folks look to?
Yeah, so by the end of the Pale stage here in FY '25, the goal would be for that document to outline what we really want to carry forward for development, right? It would be a good understanding of what are the best options that financially fit, or that we have a path forward financially with, and at that point, we would start into development. It will outline a potential funding sources, how that could work. All this is unknown at this time, but obviously it would outline those things. And then if it is a schedule of projects, say 10 projects, it would give a schedule of implementation. What would we get the best bang for our buck to begin with, and how that financial path would be laid out? Or do we have all the money on the front end and we do it all at one time? But I would anticipate at a minimum that, assuming a choice lane wouldn't be picked, because that comes with its own set of rules and one concessionaire and one contractor. But if it is not that, then we would probably have a series of projects that would be implemented in different types of development processes. Some of them may be alternative delivery, where we go to work pretty quick through design build or CMGC, and some of them may be traditional design bid build type projects. So I could see. Obviously, this has a wide range of potential today, but
Okay.
The development and implementation would also has a potential wide range of solutions as well.
Okay. And last comment, Mayor, I'm sorry. Thank you for doing this, first of all. I mean, I know local people in the community have wanted to see some solutions presented for a very long time. And then also, I like how you refer to this area as the crossroads of America. Just one thing from a messaging standpoint, I remember about 20 or 25 years ago, our local economic development agency was presented with a map that had traffic flow across the United States of America. And those lines were drawn, the thickness of the line was based on the traffic.
Right.
And I have never forgotten that visual of what is going through our community. And so when we talk about 40,000 or 45,000 or different numbers, I just think it would help maybe to put those visuals in there for citizens to be able to see that. This is what we're talking about. This is the number of folks that travel through our community, not just local traffic.
Yeah, I
So,
certainly appreciate that perspective. Being an engineer, I understand it clearly, and I don't need those visuals. But talking to the public, visuals
Yeah.
are a key piece to hitting hearts, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Mayor Williams.
Well, we live it, so we know it,
Yes.
like you do. And what is the perspective as far as federal funding on this? Do you see that there is a path there, or is this something that state's going to have to pick up a lot of? Or
I think every avenue is on the table today. So I think
Okay.
federal funding will likely be a possible scenario in some of this.
okay.
Okay, well, clearly this is one of the stretches of highway in our state that's the most congested, has the most safety issues and people experiencing life-altering injury crashes. So we are ready, willing, and eager to see some progress on this. And it sounds like this year's planning, and we'll have some more tangible things to respond to later in this year, and then next year have a plan in place, possibly.
That's the plan.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I almost said council members, TPO members. We'll move back to the beginning of our agenda. We've moved to this one just to get that done since it's not a voting item. Oh, first, first, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do have
Okay.
10 members present.
Let's move to approve the minute. Is there a motion on the minutes from our last meeting? Motion to approve. Okay, motion made to approve, and it's been made and seconded. Any questions or discussions on the minutes from last meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Introductions. I guess we could real quickly do introductions. I feel like we're going a little backwards. All right, Jim Snowden, what's your name and what's your role?
Thank you, Chair Lady. I'm Jim Snowden. I'm sitting in on behalf of Mayor Glenn Jacobs.
Good morning, Matt Missouri, Planning Director with TDOT.
Troy Hubbard, TDOT OCT voting member.
Larry Gann, City of Clinton.
Andrew Roberto, Knoxville City Council.
Isaac Thorne, Director of Knoxville Area Transit.
Justin Biggs, ETDD.
India Kincannon, Knoxville Mayor.
Doug Burton, TPO Coordinator.
Mayor Ronald Williams Farragut.
Terry Frank, Anderson County Mayor.
James Temple sitting in for Mayor Blair Waters.
Dallas DeArmond, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Brian Boone, City of Maryville for Mayor Andy White.
You're at the table. Let's hear your.
We're at the table here. We are changing things up a little bit with some of the staff that are presenting and going to sit here. So Craig Lipke with the TPO staff.
Mike Conger, TPO staff.
Okay. Is anyone participating by Zoom?
We have a few people from TDOT on Zoom. We have Andy Paget, Mark Nagy, and Savannah Robertson.
Okay. Thank you for listening in. Are there any amendments to today's agenda? Besides the one I already made without, with your consent? Okay. Then we approve the minutes. Okay, item number 3. Is there a motion to approve a resolution? I mean,
Craig's
I don't know.
got
Do you
it.
usually read this? I don't know.
No, you just usually read the top here, but Craig,
Okay.
Craig is going to do the presentation.
Okay, got it.
Yep, so we do have amendments to the Transportation Improvement Program, and these are both for City of Knoxville projects. A little bit of background, one of the kind of process of getting a project ready to get notice to proceed to construction is a final estimate heading into that process, and oftentimes that does result in needing to kind of plus up the funding, especially if it's been a while since what was programmed it comes to fruition here. So that's really what we're dealing with here. We've got amendments to the projects. Both of them are exempt projects. The total federal funding that we're adding, you see there about $5.3 million, $4.6 million in LSTBG funds being added to Project 1, which is the Pleasant Ridge Road project, and then about $660,000 in transportation alternatives funds being added to the Liberty Street Multimodal project. Again, so that Pleasant Ridge Road project has been ongoing for quite some time and is now ready to move forward. This is reconstructing that road with turn lanes as well as then bicycle and pedestrian facilities, amending the project to revise the schedule to show that it's moving forward here in fiscal 2025. About $11.3 million in LSTBG funding, the total project cost for construction phase about $14.8 million. I will point out that there is about $3.5 million of local non-participating, which I believe in this case is KUB utility costs moving forward with that. So this total project addition is about $9 million, the $4.6 million in federal, the associated local match for that, and then those non-participating KUB costs that are being added. Total project costs pretty substantial there, about $17.5 million once you fold all the development costs in. I'll go ahead and say while we're here, both of these cost overruns, these were cost overruns, those are approved at the technical committee level, and that was a conversation that was had earlier this month at the technical committee, and both of these were approved. The additional funding was approved for there. If there are any questions about this project, I can take those now.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We'll proceed through both and then have the amendment after we present the other one, but
Okay, let's have the other one too, please.
This was a smaller addition here, again, that Liberty Street multimodal project. This is essentially the same process where this was approved by the tech committee in March, and we're adding a lesser amount of funding there on that one. That's adding about 560,000, or I'm sorry, what are we adding? My apologies on that. We are adding about 600,000 of TAP funding to that project. And again, updating the project costs and reflecting that it is here happening in fiscal '25. Total project cost being increased to about $2.2 million. And also, this motion would recommend the project amendments as well as then reaffirming the Metropolitan Transportation Planning process, indicating that we're following kind of the various rules and regulations on that. Now it's time for a motion.
Okay. The motion was made by Councilmember Roberto and seconded by, I don't know, was it Mayor Williams? Okay. Thank you for the overview. Thanks to the technical committee. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, please.
This is the safety performance measures, and Mike Conger will present this.
Yes. All right. Good morning, everyone. This is another action item for your consideration today, covering the annual process to adopt safety performance targets. In this case, it's a 5-year period covering 2021 through 2025. This is the 8th time we've been through this process, and those who have been around a while will remember that the previous 7 times we've just supported the state's targets. However, we are allowed to, if we want to, establish our own quantifiable targets for any or all of the 5 safety measures that I'll talk about here in a second. So we presented to the technical committee in January an option to develop local targets, discuss that with them, and they requested that staff move forward with an option to set local targets. So at their meeting earlier this month, we did present both the local targets and state targets, and they recommended approval of the local targets, which are before you here today. So some of the justification for considering local targets this time around, the main thing is that we adopted this Regional Roadway Safety Action Plan in 2023, and that listed a formal goal or commitment in that plan that we want to reduce fatalities and serious injuries by 2/3 by the year 2045. And mathematically, that works out to a 5% annual reduction for that 20-year period starting in 2024. So this gives us something quantifiable or a measure that we have in writing that we can strive toward. The other thing is there's some technical aspect of this. With the TPOe not covering full counties, makes it a challenge to get the crash data sometimes because they're normally reported at full county level. TDOT has, though, acquired this safety program called AASHTO that you can see this screenshot. We can lay our boundary and it selects only the crashes within that. So that helps us quantify these. However, I will mention we did work with Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security, comparing the numbers from that platform, and we're with some discrepancies there. So we did go with the Tennessee Department of Safety numbers as more official. There's a lot of idiosyncrasies in the data, how crashes get reported and determined later on it was actually a medical issue that caused the fatality, someone with a heart attack and they crash and they find that later. So that's just some of the reason why the numbers differ. So the statewide targets, there's 5 areas: number of fatalities, the fatality rate per VMT, number of serious injuries, serious injury rate, and then a subset of that is non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. So this is a set of the state targets this year. You can see they're all, in all cases, compared to the 5-year rolling average baseline, they're higher. And what TDOT does is mainly just a statistical evaluation process. They're kind of laying these on a linear projection and seeing that everything's really increasing and not necessarily any way to affect that. They don't have a goal like reducing by 2/3. So they've just followed the trend data to set their targets and how they do that, and recognizing population and travel's increasing in the state. But looking at our targets, again, using that measure that we've established there, this is what the numbers work out to be, and these are 5-year averages. So only 2 of ours are increasing, and I'll show a chart here that explains why they're still increasing for our numbers. But we do have 3 that are lower of those 5 measures. So real quickly, some charts of those measures to show you the trend in that 5-year average. So this is number of fatalities. You can see it kind of bounces around. That's one reason they do a 5-year average, because it smooths it out from the extremes. So this green number is that 5-year average of these blue numbers. And then if we assume it reduces by 5% each year, you can see the trend line downward. These are the two goal area targets. But when you factor those in the 5-year average, it's still higher than the baseline because we have these low numbers here on the back end. So this is the target for the number of fatalities. We have a preliminary number for 2024. Our goal would be 115, but the actual number right now is showing 121. So we would be missing this target based on that trend line. This is serious injuries. There's been a decline until just recently, and the 2023 number bumped up. So 2023 is our baseline number that we're now reducing 5% per year. So that trend line goes down. And in this case, the target is actually lower for that number. Finally, this is again a subset of those first two factors I showed, just looking at the non-motorists, or what we call vulnerable road users, the bicyclist, pedestrian. So the curve had kind of been going up and then down. So what the 5-year average worked out to be was 49.8. If we assume a 5% reduction on those, we get down to here, and that's our target number. Unfortunately, for 2024, though, our preliminary number is way up here at 73 versus the 40 that we needed. So initially here, it looks like we're in not going to beat this target area. So I'll get into the number a little bit of what's affecting that, or the breakdown. So this shows that breakdown. Again, it's fatalities and serious injuries going back to 2019. You can see the number of fatalities is somewhat stable in the mid-teen area. For whatever reason, though, in 2024, we've really spiked up on the serious injury side of things. And so we have all these plotted, and we can dig into those numbers further as we move forward and try to, the whole point of this is to try to address what's happening, those hotspots and so forth. Just one other quick note, we do have to get a rate number, and that's a challenge with this partial county. The roadway VMT is usually reported by full county. We do some mathematical methods and parse out just the portion of roadways in the TPO planning area to get these numbers. So the rates are just the numbers divided by the VMT. So that's why I'm not going to show those in detail. So we do know that just setting a goal without anything backing it up is just, wishful thinking. We want to figure out why we're having these issues and target projects and plans to address those. So this shows a few initiatives that are underway already, mainly through this Federal Highway Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program that has planning and implementation funding in it. And this region's been very successful in getting grants under that. In 2023, we got a planning and demonstration for Anderson County. We're working with them right now. This is a map that's online that folks in the county can identify crash issues. I know Mayor Frank's helping us to get the word out about that. There's been a public meeting and another one scheduled for that. City of Knoxville has especially been successful. In 2023, $8 million was awarded to a couple projects. And then last year, a big award of 18 million of federal dollars for Chapman Highway, and they also have several planning studies along with that. Other jurisdictions in the area got planning funds last year, including City of Alcoa, Knox County, KCDC, and even Friendsville. And TDOT, they get the safety federal funding known as HSIP, Highway Safety Improvement Program. They now have a 3-year program of projects, and I didn't list it individually here, but there's 7 in our area, including 3 that are pedestrian road safety initiative, especially targeting the vulnerable road users. So this summary and a requested action here, again, we're recommending that you guys adopt the local targets for this round. And the main reason being, so now we can kind of officially track our progress in meeting those safety plan goals. This is what it looks like on the fatality side, starting from 2023. If we reduce by 2/3 by 2045, we're down at 40 and hopefully even below that. There's really no formal evaluation or consequence if we don't meet these targets. So, there's no drawback from that standpoint. And that's about it. We do have a resolution adopting these local targets, and it does need to be adopted by the end of this month as per the deadline from Federal Highway. So if there are any questions or comments, I can address those.
Any questions or comments for Mike? Motion made to approve and seconded. I'll just say that, public safety is the most important function of government, and we're all here to serve the public. Sometimes we think of that as police and fire, but we actually have a lot more people being seriously injured and killed on roadways than from fires or, violent crime. So this is a really important thing to work on, and we have some data to back it up, some grants and stuff. We've adopted a Vision Zero. We want to get down to zero, and I know we all do. So I'm really pleased that we're not just going with projections, but trying to improve things so more people can travel our roadways safely. Mike?
Yeah, I did want to, I totally glossed over the Vision Zero that was on that one slide, but we had originally intended to have your new Vision Zero coordinator come and present today all the initiatives, all the great work the City of Knoxville is working on, not just the federally funded side, but local kind of quick fix projects that they're looking at. So Cody Gentry was going to be here, but we knew we had the TDOT presentation, so we wanted to keep the time at our normal. So he'll be here at our March meetings, though, to provide that update on what the city is working on.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councilmember Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate the discussion about Vision Zero. I know council, myself included, and the mayor have been big supporters of Vision Zero, so really glad that that's getting mentioned. In some of the charts you were talking about, there were some pretty wild changes there in, fatalities, it looked like, going up and down there. Can you explain what's going on there?
I mean, it's just some of the randomness in the data. A lot of these do tend to be random events. Although the number is unfortunately somewhat stable in that 100 range. You would think maybe one year for whatever reason we have fewer or not.
If we could just continue discussion after. We are about to lose our quorum. Yeah.
So we need sorry. But
TPO member, do you mind if we would take the vote and then, Mike, you could stay and answer questions afterwards?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
That works.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Biggs. Mr. Conger, if you could just continue to try to unpack that, it is a disturbing trend.
Right, and the way it has been increasing, there's a lot of factors that go into that, and that's part of the follow-up process to this is to try to, again, understand what's happening there. Is it roadway infrastructure or behavioral side? We see distracted driving, unfortunately, with smart. I think you can look at the numbers after 2009, 10, when smartphones became available, and just the explosion of their use, I think, negatively affects safety on the roadway. But there's other initiatives that can hopefully address that.
Well, and I'll just add that in our Vision Zero program takes as a matter of course that humans make mistakes and that humans will always be fallible. And so that we need to plan accordingly because no one's ever gonna, and also humans tend to speed. Speed's a factor in almost all of these crashes. So ways to change, acknowledge human behavior and change road design and enforcement and so forth is super important. People are never gonna, sometimes they just go as fast as the road will allow, even if the speed limit's 15. If the roadway's wide and open, they'll go, some people, many people will go as fast as the road seems to invite them to go. So anyhow, Councilmember Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. So by accepting, which we've already done now, these new goals, which first off, I want to applaud our group for doing that and taking the time to think about these reductions that we want to see. If we meet these goals, what does that mean for the public with regard to lives saved and injuries that are prevented?
Yeah, so these are the numbers that we've, again, just on the one fatality measure, we're applying this to all the measures, the 5% per year reduction. And, obviously we want to get to zero is what there is no acceptable loss of life or serious injury. But we also recognize it's going to be a challenge to meet that. So this is not going all the way to zero, but again, reducing by 2/3, what that translates numerically on fatalities would be 80 more people alive in 2045 than were in 2023, or, fatalities, that number. That's the delta.
And I think that's really important. And, just putting that where everyone can understand what we're talking about is, our daughters, our sons, our mothers, fathers. These are our neighbors that we're talking about. So any reduction that we can see, I think, is incredibly important.
Right.
So I appreciate us doing that. Thank you.
Right, and we will be only the second MPO out of the 11 to do our own local targets. Nashville was the first. They've done this now 3 or 4 years, but it was a hurdle to overcome, workload wise. But now that we have this set up, I think it should be moving forward on our end as staff, much less involved to maintain. So,
Thank you. We'll move on. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, we've already voted, so we'll move on. We've done item 5. Are there any other updates from TDOT and FHWA?
Does this work if I just click the link, Dallas? Do you want me to do that now?
Yeah,
or-
let me give it a little bit of an intro. No federal highway, I assume? Nobody's, okay. Well, this is the entertainment portion, I think, of the agenda. I wanted to preface it by describing what you're about to see. As you know, the governor's is going through budget hearings right now. TDOT and our senior staff have been involved in that during this week. A couple of the items in his budget have some direct connections to TDOT, and our community relations folks decided it would be easiest to help to have the general public digest some of those things that are related to TDOT through this video. So Mike, if you don't mind pressing it. It's about 4 minutes, and there's about three items in here that they sort of breeze through without really a break. And we'll see if you find it at that. If not, we can talk about the 3 afterwards. But
Okay, let's roll. No. There we go. Okay.
let's see. Yes.
There we go.
As I'm walking through and then starting to sing.
To offer,
Okay.
but something isn't adding up. Steady growth, flat revenue, aging assets, and increased inflation all create a sum that's just too large for TDOT to tackle alone. To give you a high-level view of our state transportation revenue, it only increases by 0.5 percentage point annually, while inflation on the materials we use, such as asphalt, steel, concrete, and guardrail, have seen double-digit increases. The Transportation Modernization Act and the recent $3 billion general fund transfer were crucial first steps in addressing this issue. And in this year's budget, the governor recommends an additional $80 million reoccurring dollars and a $1 billion one-time transfer from the state general fund.
Safe, reliable roads, it's a primary responsibility of state government, but there are limited funds to fulfill an unlimited need. So 2 years ago, we began addressing this complex problem, and we will not stop there.
These funds will advance crucial maintenance activities, such as pavement resurfacing to aid in preventing potholes, permit additional mowing and litter cycles to increase safety.
We got a vehicle that he drove over.
Yeah, we'll be in service, head that way.
And expand our help truck program to include rural interstates to better respond to and hopefully decrease higher speed crashes outside our existing help truck coverage zones. These funds will also be used for critical bridge repair projects to prolong the life of crossings for Tennesseans, with 50% of our state's bridges being over 50 years old. Finally, we propose to use the vast majority of that funding to expedite current 10-year plan projects, add crucial projects to that 10-year plan, and further the department's ability to leverage additional funds from federal and local sources to build as much as we can. Even with this investment, it's still not enough to cover the $38 billion needed for projects statewide. So, TDOT has come up with an innovative idea for your community to leverage additional funding to help get projects done faster. Enter the local option proposal. Current law allows certain local governments, 11 counties, and 5 cities to collect surcharges to raise revenue for public transit, but only if voters approve it at the ballot. The local option proposal seeks to expand that same concept to include all cities and counties across the state, giving you more options to support local infrastructure projects like roads, highways, and bridges, in addition to transit. Another tool in the toolbox that TDOT hopes to revitalize is the State Infrastructure Fund Loan Program. This gives communities the ability to access low-interest loans to speed up construction and reduce the backlog of local infrastructure needs, providing additional leveraging opportunities for communities to partner with TDOT. Our transportation system is still at a critical juncture, and the old ways just aren't cutting it anymore. We need fresh, creative ideas to get us back on track, and we can't do it alone. We need your support to make this happen. Together, we can build a stronger, more connected future. Having the ability to bring more money to the table can accelerate projects and get improvements completed faster. The goal is simple. Every one of Tennessee's counties and cities deserves the option to prioritize safety, economic growth, and connectivity, leading to a better quality of life, which is why we're asking you to build with us.
Good video. Although her accent does not sound like she's from Tennessee, I have to say.
No,
But-
she used to be a newscaster. Her
Okay.
name's Alex
It was,
Dennis.
okay. It was.
Mike, I think you've got it on there. That video plus a breakdown of some of those items that you heard on that are on our Build With Us website. So if you do need to have, there's some material too, I think, that you can download and potentially pass out to other folks who would be interested in that. But I think that's it. Again, just to summarize, the 3 items that were in there were the sustainable funding source above the gas tax option, the local proposal option proposal, and then the state infrastructure bank. Those are the 3 that were identified in that video. And hopefully, I'm here to answer as many questions as I can. Again, this is not a final decision. This is proposals for the budget that would be adopted on July 1st if they do go through that in the same form that they've been presented. But any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us and we can get that to you. I hope.
Any questions at the moment? Okay, more may bubble up later and people will reach out if they need to. Thank you so much. Other business.
I know we're running late, but I've got just a few things real quick. Last meeting, we selected a new chair and vice chair, and I know Mayor Frank was not here, but I wanted to be sure to express our appreciation for her. She was a 2-term chair, and I think you were a vice chair before that, so we really appreciate your work and dedication to the TPO. We mentioned also that there's going to be a household survey being sent out, and this is part of it's a statewide program. We're working with several MPOs and TDOT and the University of Tennessee Transportation Center, and they're asking people to download an app onto their phone, and it kind of tracks them for a day or 2, and that helps us better understand people's travel patterns, and it all figures back into our computer model. But you may get calls when people get these letters. People are sometimes suspicious or,
Sometimes?
Yeah, so if they can have your assurance, or we will send them to the TPO, and we will have information on our website about the project also. So those will start going out. It's a two-step process. They'll do some in the spring, and then they'll take a pause in the summer, and then finish up with the amount they need in the fall. So anything else on that, Mike?
The current target is for those letters to go out around March 27th, so we still got about a month or so, but we'll be doing press releases and get information to you guys so you're aware of what's going on. And again, just appreciate your support.
How many are you sending out, and what's your projected response rate or aspirational
So
response rate?
there's 8 MPOs altogether. Memphis is the largest, and then Nashville's not doing this, but there's 400,000 letters that are going out to the 8 regions. I don't know the exact number in our area. We're also combined with Lakeway, so there's 8 counties in our region that will be getting these letters all together. So a lot of letters going out from that. We would try to get the samples we need, which is like 3,000 or 2,500 for our whole region, but they recognize it's going to be a challenge to get enough people.
Participation is voluntary, and maybe like 50,000 people will get invited to participate?
In our region?
Yeah, in our region. You said 400,000 across the state?
Yeah, doing the math, might be somewhere around that range.
60 or 70,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there is a monetary incentive offered to folks, but it's fairly minimal.
How much?
$5 per person in the household, plus an additional $5 if they download the app. The app's not mandatory to report this, but so a family of 4 could get $40 total in the household if they do it. So
That's a couple cups of coffee at least. Yeah, that's not bad. All right.
I have a couple other things real quick. We're feverishly working on the final details of our Mobility Plan 2050. So there will be a period of federal review, and we have to post it up on our website. It's open for also just general public review. It'll be in early March. We don't have an exact date yet, but we'll let you know when that's up. We will have to approve that in April. We were sweating the quorum out today, but we got to have attendance in April. If it doesn't get passed, it can start really messing up approval and how projects move forward and everything. So please try to come in April. It's also time for us to start our next work program. We do a 2-year work program. So we do this, all the MPOs across the state do it at the same time, but we can fund planning projects. Some examples of what we funded in the past include we funded Oak Ridge Center City Area Circulation and Town Center Plan, the Hall Road Washington Street Corridor Study, Maryville and Alcoa Greenway Master Plan, Springbrook Farm Master Vision Plan, the Hardin Valley Mobility Study, and the Chapman Highway Corridor Study. So if you have any types of planning projects or studies that you need in your area, please let us know. We actually have some existing money in our current budget, and we will have more funding in the new budget. So if you have any ideas, pass them forward and we can talk to you about that. And then the final thing is just our next executive board meeting would be in March 26th. So we hope to see you there. That's all that I have.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Is there are any members of the public who are wishing to speak to the board today? Doesn't look like it. So without objection, this meeting is adjourned. See you all in March, if not before.